Hi, good afternoon. I'm Valerie McSorely. I am the owner of Avant Garde Events, and I am here live in the virtual hive with my good friend Jonas Cain. Jonas is an instructional designer, facilitator of fascination, and purveyor of positivity. His social entrepreneurship, #positivity, provides knowledge, skills, and resources to help emerging leaders and their influencers experience greater clarity, confidence, courage, and joy in their work and relationships through the development of social emotional skills. Jonas, I'm so happy to have you here today.
It is a true joy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
We could certainly use a big dose of positivity right now. We've been living through increasingly stressful and unprecedented times, not only in this country, but globally. We are still in the midst of the coronavirus and the pandemic. And now with all the protests and riots that have taken place over the past 8 or 9 days in this country, we are living in a very negative space. We're now finding ourselves in just a changed environment, and speaking collectively, we are a mix of feelings and emotions that are ranging anywhere from anger, sadness, frustration, depression, loneliness, anxiety, and just overall uncertainty. So you're the positivity expert, and I feel like we need a big old cup of Jonas this afternoon to get through this. So what advice can you give us as we find ourselves filled with such mixed emotions?
This is a loaded question and a worthy one to be asking. I think about this every day because every day we have reasons to be frustrated. Every day we have reasons to be upset about something. And the question is, are we going to stay frustrated by this and drink that poison of frustration, or are we going to become fascinated by it, and instead of asking the defeating questions like why me, why this, why now, how can I use this, what can I bring to the table, and if we don't address this now, well then when? So what I would suggest, I have a little sort of like a little metaphor for this that I brought with me, because this is so apt for what we're going through right now. We have a bottle of cherry soda. It's empty, but let's just say for this thought experiment that this is filled with cherry soda. And let's say, Valerie, let's say that social distancing wasn't a thing anymore and you were hanging out with me here at my office.
I'm not sure it is a thing anymore based on what I see on TV, so go ahead.
Oh, okay, well,
those crowd sizes are enormous right now, as we concerned.
You're welcome anytime. So let's say you come over my office and I'm drinking cherry soda, and then you bump into me by accident, of course. It's not like you would purposefully knock into me, and then that knocks the bottle out of my hand and cherry soda spills all over my nice wood floors. The question becomes, Valerie, why did cherry soda spill out of the bottle and onto the floor?
Are you asking? Because we bumped into each other.
You see, that's the answer that I would expect. Not the answer that I'm looking for, though. So, but it is the one that I expected. You see, the reason that cherry soda spilled out of the bottle is because that's what was inside the bottle. If this had been a bottle of water, it would be water that's on the floor. If I was drinking beer, it would be beer that's on the floor. Or vodka, it would be vodka. Or wine, it would be wine. Whatever is in the bottle, whatever inside, when things get tough, when the world turns upside down, that's what's going to spill out of the bottle. Now, if we instead, so the question becomes for us, when the world is going to turn upside down and get crazy, there's so many examples of this today, but there's examples of this in everyone's life where the world literally turns upside down. And when the world turns upside down, well, we turn upside down with it, right? So whatever is inside of us, whatever we've decided to put inside of ourselves, that's what's going to come out of our, so to speak, bottle. So we can be tied to whatever is going on in the world, or we can choose instead to be tied to ourselves, so that regardless of the circumstances we find ourselves in, we can always land on our feet. It's tricky. It's tricky. So the question is, what are we consuming? What are we putting inside of ourselves? What narratives are we choosing to pay attention to? Or what are we focusing on? If we fill ourselves with all of the, I want to be careful here, because fear and anger have a place. Oh my goodness, of course they do. When it leads to right actions, positive actions that build up rather than tear down. However, fear and anger, when they're filled up inside of us without a proper outlet, well then of course we're always going to turn upside down. The question is, do we want to be someone who's able to land on our feet, or do we want to be someone who's going to always be turning upside down with the world? And it's the difference between having that growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. When we have a fixed mindset, who we are, that's just who we are. We're controlled by outside sources. It's our parents' fault. It's our teacher's fault. It's our mayor's fault. It's your fault, Valerie. It's never my fault. I'm being affected by you, or infected by you, as the case may be with the virus. But I don't have any control. It's always everything else going around us. However, when we have this growth mindset, we take back control of our circumstances. Well, while we can't control what happens, what we can control is how we respond to them. And we can respond through anger and fear, and let it turn into hatred and all these negative things. Or we could take that fear of the unknown and the anger, and we could say, well, what can we do with this? How can I bring my passions and my talents to this? Now, of course, this is easier to do if we've already filled our bottle with good things. If we've already been conscious enough to fill our internal resources of self-efficacy and confidence and optimism and resilience, which is something that we can practice on an ongoing basis. It's harder if we haven't filled our bottle with the right things, and all of a sudden the world turns upside down and we expect good things to come out. Well, of course not. You're gonna see everything that we have in the news.
Right. So those reservoirs of our own self that we keep, our own moral compass, our own values, all of the things, the positive attributes that we hold dear, you put good in, you get good out. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, it's the idea. We were talking earlier that we are exactly where we should be, considering everything we've done up until this moment. And if we don't like what we're getting right now, well, we have to change something.
Yes, I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that. And I share a story with you, and I just want to mention it again. It was before we went live, but my family and I were unfortunately at the finish line of the marathon bombing. My husband and I, my sons, and we just through a variety of just strange occurrences were delayed from being at the finish line right as the bombs went off. So just, in that moment, in that day, so many valuable lessons were learned. And again, it was another time of profound uncertainty and pain, but it was also a time when I really took a strong lesson from that. Was you are exactly where you need to be, down to the minute, down to the second, down to the square of earth that you are on top of in that moment. You are exactly where you need to be. So you need to take the lessons from that and just trust that there is something, the message is there. So, it's hard though, when you don't have that sense of control, and right now, a lot of things are out of control in multiple ways. So, we talk a lot about breathing, and there's a lot that, just visibility wise with a lot of the themes of this protest and the I can't breathe signs. Mm-hmm. So, I want to acknowledge that we're talking about controlling ourselves and controlling our bodies and our thoughts and our minds and trying to remain positive in really uncertain times. that I can't breathe has really become such an important centerpiece of what's going on in this conversation. And, you know, politics aside, that's not the intention. I want people to feel good from this Facebook Live event. But, you know, breathing is such an important thing to consider. And yet it's also funny because we don't really have to consider it, right? Like every single person on planet Earth is breathing involuntarily all day long throughout their sleep. It's uncontrollable. But when we take control of that breathing process, we can change our experience. And I know that there's a lot people, when they control their breath and they calm down and they're more mindful. I mean, there's so many ways to experience this. So can you share some tips with us about how this is helpful and why this is so important for us to do?
Yes, breathing. You have hit the nail right on the head. I've been a big proponent of mindful breath since I discovered its amazing powers, and especially now, you know, it's become this almost like a symbol of this time in our lives. And one of the other practices that I do often, just a personal practice, is I like to run. Actually, I should clarify that I don't like to run, but I know, but it's what I choose to do to take care of myself. And one of the things that keeps me running is thinking that not everyone can run. Some people don't have the legs for it. You know, maybe they can't even walk, you know, so I take advantage of what I am capable of doing while I can do it. But breathing is one of those things that not everyone has, that is being given the air to breathe. And breathing is such a powerful thing because it does several things. Number one, it literally keeps us alive. And you're also right. It's something that we don't have to consciously think about. Our body just naturally does it on its own. But when we do become conscious of it, we can really use it as a tool to give ourselves greater clarity and confidence and courage, both in the moments of crisis, but also leading up as parts of self-care. I like to use it as sort of like a mental pause. You know, when the going gets tough, if someone, you know, if I happen to find myself in a situation, whether socially with friends or family or with colleagues, and maybe someone says something and maybe my knee-jerk reaction would be to snap something back or maybe act out in some way. Breathing, what that's doing is it's giving us a moment of pause. Really fill the lungs and then let it out. And maybe we need 2 or 3 of those in those.
Do one right now.
Oh, please do. If, for anyone who's tuning into this, I encourage you, really fill the lungs. That's the important part. And the reason the lungs especially are so important is it activates our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the body's natural, it's like a brake pedal on a car, whereas the sympathetic nervous system is like the gas pedal, which it revs us up, it gets excited, gets the adrenaline running. But the parasympathetic nervous system calms us down so we can face life with greater calm and clarity. And our body naturally kicks in that nervous system on its own all the time. But one of the ways that we can do it mindfully on our own is big, deep breaths. And it's specifically the out breath. It's when the lungs return back to their natural resting state. That's what kicks it in. So the bigger you fill your lungs, the calmer you're going to feel. So one, again, it gives us sort of like a mental break. You know, it's like that saying, need a moment, chewed over with Twix, right? Instead, instead of putting terrible things in our bottle, we're putting healthy air into our body with the flow of oxygen. But it's also going to give us some time to think about how we want to respond, which I want to talk more about in just a little bit, is, you know, mindful responses and choosing well before how we're going to respond, which is a whole other thing in itself. But it really gives us a chance to really calm down and choose how to respond rather than reacting by default.
So let's really get down nitty gritty, like in through your nose, out through your mouth, like how long do you pause? Like, do you have any like real specifics if people are listening? Because I think the ability to control your breath, everything you're saying is important, but I think some people this may be brand new to. So I've heard, you know, if you go in through your nose, hold for 3 seconds, out through your mouth, like release for 7 seconds. Is there any like real formula you've got down for this?
Yeah, there's lots of different techniques, lots of different ways that different practices have suggested how you should do this, or how you can do it. Mine is, I usually just I go until I can't possibly fill any more in,
Mhm.
and I count to 3, and then just let it out slowly. I don't actually count, but I know it's been suggested you should breathe in for like 5, out for 5, or in for 5, out for 10, you know. So there's lots of different ways, but the way that I personally do it is fill as much as I can, hold it for 3, and then out slowly, and then repeat as often as necessary.
Now, do you do this like as a habit several times a day to just reset and center yourself to get into that habit?
I especially do it. I find anytime when I find myself getting revved up, getting anxious, you know, talking about earlier today, you know, you were talking about how, you know, being reminded that you are exactly where you should be. And that's a reminder that I try to remind myself of, because so often we don't want to be where we are, right? No one wants to be in the middle of a pandemic. No one wants to be in the middle of a social justice crisis. No one wants to be here, right? But we're exactly where we should be, considering everything we've done to get here. And earlier today, I was driving home, and I don't know. It's not like I don't know what it was, but there was just something inside of me thinking, I don't want to be where I am like right now. Like I didn't want to be driving right now. I just wanted to be home. And I had to remind myself, taking some breaths, I'm exactly where I need to be. There's nowhere else to be. I'm just driving. This is where I need to be. I need to be mindful of the road right now. So it's especially in moments of when you find yourself getting frustrated or anxious, where you feel your heart start to beat faster. That's when you should be taking these nice breaths to really ground yourself in the present moment.
Awesome. Love it. Great advice.
Yeah.
Great advice. So that leads me to think about more just, you know, all this conversation has got me thinking just more about, you know, mindfulness and how we need to be more mindful, both, you know, personally and professionally right now. We have people working, you know, obviously remotely more than ever. And then we have balance with that. We've got like, you know, upwards of 40 million people unemployed right now. So, you know, especially in the midst of all of these different issues that are hitting us so fast right now, you know, organizations are becoming even more mindful with their inclusion and diversity policies. So, you know, there's a lot of change going on right now, both on so many different levels. There's so many layers to this as we get into. There's just a ton of problems to just sort through, and it could make the best of us not feel so positive right now. So, but at the end, I'm hopeful that we will see a lot of positive changes come from this time. But what can we do to build on this, to become more mindful in our lives, in our daily lives, in our daily practice? What can we do? Do you have any strategies or tips that we can take from this? I bet you do.
I do. Oh my goodness. Do you have a day that I could sit down with you?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, actually, the way you phrased that, it immediately brought to mind a specific quote from Steve Jobs. I'm not going to tell you the quote just yet, because instead we're going to do something. I wasn't even planning on doing this. Let's just do it this way. For all of you who are tuning in, if you're in a safe place, as in if you're not driving or walking, I encourage you to participate in this. Everyone close your eyes. And if you are driving, please keep your eyes open.
Well, you shouldn't be having your phone, so please
pull
over.
That's a good point. So everyone close your eyes and imagine that you're at a funeral. Imagine that you're at a funeral and, there's beautiful flowers, there's lots of people, solemn faces, but people are telling stories. And as they tell the stories, you see smiles and you hear some light laughter as people reflect on fond memories, which of course lead to tears because they're sad that the beloved is gone. But now you suddenly become aware that it's not just any funeral, it's your funeral. You are now gone. And all of your loved ones, everyone that you've ever loved, has come to pay their respects. And they're telling stories about you, about who you are, not so much about your accomplishments, but literally who you are as a person, your character, the things that you valued, the things that you loved, and how you loved. What are they saying? Of course, we'll never know what they would say. But so the next question becomes, well, what would you want them to say? Now take a nice big breath in. Fill the lungs. Let it out. And just do one more just for good measure. And open your eyes. The quote from Steve Jobs, I think it was a commencement address. I think it was Stanford University. And I'll paraphrase. He said, remembering that you're going to die is the best way I know to make sure you do the right things today and every day. And he paraphrased it by telling the story about when he was, of course, diagnosed with cancer, and he ultimately was able to beat it. But what he would do is he would literally look in the mirror in the morning and he would say to himself, if I died tomorrow, will I have been glad that I did what I'm about to do today? Talk about being mindful. That's one way to zap you into mindfulness real quick. And so this whole exercise that we just did is a great way to think about. Of course, we'll never know what our friends and loved ones are going to say about us, because there's four different selves. There's the self that we project onto others. There's the self that others see. There's the self of who we really are, and then there's the self of who we hope to be, sort of like it's our aspirational self. So there's so many different masks going on here. There's only one true one. But so the question here is about being more mindful and more intentional, is to remind ourselves that, again, it's not so much about our accomplishments. Those are just the things that we do, but it's who do we bring to what we do, no matter what we're doing. Even if lots of people that are laid off right now, lots of people have lost their jobs, their businesses have closed, their companies have closed, never to come back. Even though, and if we tie our identity just to what we do, oh my goodness, those people, I feel for them, because if their identity is tied to that and now they can't do what they want to do. I have some friends who are really struggling because they've identified so much with who they are that now that they can't do it, they don't even know who they are anymore.
It's like taking their oxygen away. They are who they are because of their identity makes them like that. Absolutely. I mean, I get that. And there's a lot of people that are hurting by that. And I think right now, like what you're describing and what you're, the exercise you brought us through is really begin with the end in mind. It's not just about a job and a title, but who you are as a person, and really sort of that legacy piece that you leave behind and why you make the choices you make. And I think right now a lot of people are just having trouble putting one foot in front of the other and feeling like, it's not the end of the world. I mean, there's so many changes so radically just over the past 10, 12 weeks that the life isn't recognizable as we knew it. And we're not recognizable as we were. We're all trying so hard to just get through the day, stay safe, pivot, all these buzzwords that we're hearing about. And I think it's also an opportunity to really push the pause, those breaks that you suggested, and say, well, who am I? And what am I taking to the new normal that is worth taking? It's a perfect time to just kind of shed the old stuff that you don't need. Who's walking forward as we move ahead? And how do you do that? And how do you, just maintain your upbeat positivity? Like I have found for myself, like it's been very challenging time because, so many parts of the business I've built from scratch for 18 years have just dissipated overnight. I woke up one day and they were gone. And you know me a long time. I'm a people person. I love to bring people together. I've built my business from scratch for 18 years. I love what I do. That passion, it is like my oxygen. And I am, trying really hard to pivot and to do the right things and to still, have that connection through the computer screen is very valuable for me. So to be able to reach forward and still do these calls, and I get on a lot of calls and I just see the long faces and it's heartbreaking. You see the pain, it's palpable, even through the computer. You see the pain that people are going through and it hurts. So, I always feel like, we rise by lifting others. Like we collectively need a lift right now. We need to do something positive. Some of what the scenes that I'm seeing on the news this is nothing that anyone needs right now. We need positive change. We don't need some of the violence and the anger and the protest. Like the peaceful protests are fine, but some of the angry stuff we could all certainly do without. But, for me, it just has me thinking more about community on so many levels, community, conversation, relationships, the value of this human interaction. Like, why are we all so sad and lonely right now? Because we can't be together, right? And we need each other now more than ever to lift ourselves up and get through this tough time, but really start to heal on a lot of, on a variety, on more topics than we had to heal from a week ago. So now we've got this onion, and there's a lot of layers here as we unfold and unpack so much of the current conversation. And we really need to start to heal collectively. So, we're going to work on resilience, right? We're going to be resilient. We are going to bounce back. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that when we are together again, when we do get through this pandemic, that we will be stronger than ever. I hope and pray every day. And until then, there's a lot of work we need to do. But let's talk a little bit about what we should be doing. Who we can lean on to help us right now, guide that path. We need mentors. We need people to look up to. We need role models. We need, look for the helpers. So we hear that a lot. Look for the helpers, and we also have to just take care of ourselves. And taking care of ourselves, it's important. It could just be something as simple as taking a shower and getting out of our yoga pants for the day and just going on with a smile and getting out the door, and just like you were earlier. So what does that really look like? Like what can we do to become more resilient in our healing going forward?
That's another loaded question. You're great questions today, Valerie. And again, I think this one we might need 2 days on.
I've been looking forward to talking with you. So obviously you've been on my mind. I feel like these questions, I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking about them, but we've got a lot of work to do here as teachers, as leaders, as parents, as friends, as just, human beings right now. We've got a lot of work to do. And you are an excellent teacher. So, when we had this time to sit down together, I wanted to really do my homework here and think about things that I think are on a lot of people's minds right now. I know you can help guide us through this.
I appreciate that, Valerie. Thank you for acknowledging that. And it's something, again, I live and breathe and eat and think about. This is what gets me up in the morning. This is what this is what keeps me awake at night. This is what I dream about. It's like literally I'll dream about this, and then I'll wake up thinking about it, and then it's one of the I just can't get out of my head, because the world is hungry, the world is thirsty, the world all the world needs air, and I'm just beside myself wanting to get all of this stuff out into the world. So it thrills me to no end to have this opportunity to share this with you and all of your viewers on here. I actually, so on this idea of connection and community and in relationships, I have 2 3-hour workshops that I teach. So it's like a half day, or no, like a full day event where I have so much material I could share with you on this one topic. And then again, that would only scratch the surface of it. But I suppose I would just start by citing that connections, relationships. It's been cited that the most positive, most happiest, most resilient people who are able to overcome challenges and live joy-filled lives, the most resilient ones of all are the ones who have high value relationships. And if we think about it, this is of no coincidence, because if we think about it, when we have people, whether it's peers that we can go to and confide in, or it's a mentor who speaks value into our lives and shows us the way and goes the way with us, or if it's people that we ourselves mentor, it's been shown that when, just as you said, like when we help others, we can't help but be lifted up ourselves, because when we raise others up, we automatically raise up with them. So relationships, oh my goodness, so important for resilience, no matter what's going on. And unfortunately, we often leave relationships to chance, or we just kind of don't really think about it. We just let it happen by default. I like to think of life as sort of like a stovetop. So if you could imagine a stovetop, and you have the 4 burners on the stove, and in each of these burners represents a different aspect of life. So you have your work on one burner, you have your health on one burner, you have your family on another one, you have your friends on another burner, right? So you have these burners. So often we crank up maybe the work burner, or we crank up our health burner, or but when we have one cranked up, that means the other ones are going to be, if we have them all cranked up, we're going to burn out, right? So we really have to only have a few on or a couple on at a time. But when we do that, we're ignoring other burners. And I've read research that shows that the experts say that to be successful, you have to just turn off one of the burners and never have it on at all. But to be really successful, you got to turn off 2 of them. And when I read this, I was horrified because which 2 are you going to choose? You need them all. You really need them all, because of what value is a great career if you don't have a loving support system? Of what value is amazing health if you have no money? You can't support your family? Of what value is hanging out with your friends if you die because you haven't taken care of yourself? So you need them all. Mm-hmm. So I contend that there's a way, of course, that we can tend to all of these in a balanced way. Of course, true balance is, it's like trying to catch a butterfly. But I find that we can incorporate all these burners, and finding unique ways. Like we can let's say For instance, if we enjoy running, like I enjoy running, well, I could go join. One of my favorite things to do is to do a 5K race. I love doing that because I get the community involved. Like we're raising money for a good cause. I get to see friends and family members who I might not otherwise see. Some of them I only see at these races. So it's this connection opportunity. But I'm also taking care of my health. But I'm also helping the community and in the relationship. So that's just one example of how we can really incorporate all of these different aspects of life just in one activity. As far as relationships go themselves, I like to think of it kind of like a compass, so if we have the 4 directions of the compass, right? So we have, right here in the middle, that's you, that's like the relationship you have with yourself. Down here are the people that you mentor. Along this plane, you have your peers, the people that you can confide in, and up here you have the people who mentor you, right? So it's important to have this compass so that you can, in any given situation, you can think about which direction are you heading, what direction is your influence going, and we all have influence, every one of us. I read a report that in our lifetime, I forget what the exact number is, but it's in the tens of thousands of people that we'll influence in our lifetime.
Wow.
Seems unheard of.
Wow.
But especially in the day of social media, where, at a click of a button, everyone knows what you had for dinner.
True.
It's perhaps even more than what the research said. But the question becomes, are we being mindful about how we're influencing others? Are we being mindful about these relationships? Who are you mentoring?
Mm-hmm.
Who is mentoring you? How are you taking care of yourself? How is your relationship with yourself? Have you been paying attention to your friends, or have you been ignoring them? There was an analogy that I used earlier today that I just came up with. I have so here at my office, this is my apartment, so this is my home office. I have a plant in my kitchen, and at first, when it was my aunt gave me this plant, and at first I was thrilled because I love gifts. Of course, who doesn't love gifts, But then when I got it home, I realized, oh my goodness, I'm going to kill this thing. Because I'm like never home. I'm always like running around, and I'm like, I'm not going to remember to take care of this thing. And actually, at first, I thought it did die. I was convinced it was dead because the leaves got brittle. I was like, oh no. But then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden, I was home so much more. And I said, okay, I'm going to make this my project. I'm going to take care of this plant. So just making sure that I remembered to water it, making sure that the window was open so it could get some sunlight. And I started talking to the plant. I'd say, hi, plant. It's good to see you. You're so beautiful. I love you. And just talking sweetly to it. And sort of like how you might talk to your cat or your dog, but I'm talking to my plant this way. And I don't have a name for I just call it plant. And sure enough, it was probably a mixture of the water and the sunlight. I like to think also of me talking sweetly to it. It came back to life. Oh my goodness, it's thriving now.
That's awesome.
And today, I went in to get my morning coffee, and I went in and I said, hi, plant, I love you. And it struck me, it hit me that it's not again, it wasn't just the words. It's not just the feelings. Yes, I have those, of course, which I know are important, but more important, what are we doing with who we are? What are we doing with how we feel? What are we doing with what we filled inside of our bottle? What are we doing with it? What's inside of it, and what are we doing with it? And
I don't just love the plant, but I make sure I water it. I leave the window open. I take care of it. It's like that saying, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, how do we define who our neighbor is? How do we define that? Is it literally the people who live next door? Is it the people who live on our street, in our town? Maybe the people who belong to the same club as we do? Is it the people who work at the same office or maybe in the same industry? Is it the people of our same age group? Maybe it's the people with the same skill sets. Or do we define it by who's in the same religion or belongs to the same ethnic group or the same sex or the same gender or the same, how do we define neighbor, right?
Mhm.
And because that has implications for how we respond to, if we love our neighbor as we love ourselves. Well, who is our neighbor? I'm treating my plant like my neighbor. It's literally my housemate. But the question becomes on a grander scale, what relationships am I fostering with the people in my community, with my neighbors? How am I tending to them? How am I watering them? How am I keeping the window open, the window of opportunity open for them? It becomes a deep meditation. It's a deep thought.
So important, and it's funny, you're using this analogy of the plant, and I had this, it was more than a plant, it was a huge tree, and it was over in my real office, and it was doing terribly. And I brought it home, and my husband kept saying to me, get rid of that thing. Like, it's dead, it's gone. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm going to give it, just like you're saying. So I nurtured it, sunlight, love. And I had cut back some of the dead pieces because some of the pieces really just was time to go. But as I looked, and this was earlier in the pandemic, I noticed that parts of it really started to grow again. And I was struck because this is a huge like palm tree type thing, like huge palm plant. And one of the branches, I looked at it carefully and it just looked like it was growing like just like a stalk, but then it fanned out. And I'm like, I couldn't believe like how it not only, I call it my resiliency tree now, because it not only like was starting to grow, like it just looked like I said, a stalk, but then it opened up slowly but surely. And I couldn't believe my eyes that it had come back. So that also, I'm like, it's a living thing, and it served as like just a source of inspiration for me, and just like a great, powerful metaphor that you can cut back, you can start again, you can start over, and there's power in nature, and it's going to come back for you. Like, and it gave me just, and now I can. There's two stalks that are coming back like that, and I think that's just it's just powerful to see that you can't, like, when things can look dark, but when you shower them with love and kindness and affection and water and all the things that we need to survive as human beings, like, powerful things can happen and you can resurrect. So I think that's great. That's a great example. I love it. And the mentoring part of your conversation, I mean, we need that right now. I have mentored students for years, and I've always found like it's another way to fill yourself up, to give yourself a gift, to share your time, your talent, your expertise with folks. And just because we're separated right now doesn't mean we're isolated. There's ways to still do that. And there's so many, which I think is probably one of the nicest things that has come. If we could put, like, we have to start to look for the silver lining and count our blessings, is the adaptation of the technology, just like we're doing today. So, it's one thing to have an interaction, but to be able to still connect with people, to use the tools that are out there. These tools have always been there. They've been here for years. We haven't been putting them to good use. And there's so many things that you can do to be present, to be with people. I've been visiting with family and friends even outside the country through Zoom, which is a gift and a blessing. So I think that when we try and find ways to lift ourselves up through our networks, through our community, what can we do? And I think it feels good to take some action. We hosted a virtual event the other night. It was like a 80s musical bingo, and we raised money for our town and the United Way. And we had a blast. I mean, the Zoom was filled up with maybe 50 different faces and families, and we were, raising money for a good cause. We were dancing in our homes, in our seats, playing a game. And it was one of the most fun nights I've had in a couple weeks. And it felt like we were like out of the house and together, and it made me realize, like, boy, I really need a night out on the dance floor. I'm going to be a lunatic when when this opens up. I need a straight jacket for me on the dance floor. But it was just so fun. And, it's filling a gap, and that we can't have that. Sometimes enough is good enough. This is what we can do right now. And if we're feeling we need to get out of the negative space and to just believe in something more powerful. So I know that different people define self-care in different ways. I know for you, it's running. If you see me running, call the police, because that's like never a good sign. I would never run unless there was like a real reason. So, but everyone does different things in different ways. So, and I think it's important to just, whatever it is, do what makes you feel better. And if that's what makes you feel better, everyone's different. Do what makes you feel better. So I know that activities also can make people feel better. So there's a resurgence to creativity, to hobbies. I see people doing all kinds of beautiful things right now. Oh, here comes the ukulele. Love it.
This is one of the activities that I do for my own self-care too. Yeah, you're right. During the pandemic, I've gotten pretty darn good at this.
I love it.
Yeah, I really impressed myself. Like, I had no idea that I could do that, and now I can.
That's awesome. It's like a renaissance in a way. I see people like thinking back to activities and hobbies and things they enjoyed, maybe even when they were kids. And I see a lot of people doing that, a lot of creativity, artistically, musically, all kinds of ways. And I think that's really very nice. So, and I think, I don't want to spill the beans, but I think you planned even an interactive activity today for us.
I did, and it ties everything that we've talked about all together into one. And I would love to do this now, and I'd like to preface it with a little story and sort of like a pre-activity activity. So one of my mentors is this woman. She's kind of like she's a coach. She's a psychotherapist, holistic, lots of things. She's lots of things. But one of the activities that she walked me through and was sort of like a visualization or it's like a deep thinking about what I was talking about earlier, about not so much what you do, but who you are. Who are you? Who is Valerie? So it's like the idea that we have two purposes almost, right? There's the outer purpose, which is what you do, but that's only the secondary purpose. There's also the inner purpose. There's who you are, and that's the primary purpose, because what you do should reflect who you are. The problem comes is when we ignore who we are and we just blindly do what we do, whether it's what we should be doing or not, because we think it's what we should be doing based off what our parents or teachers or society tells us. So what I'd like us to do right now is to consider who are you? And I'm going to just list off. These are, I think I have seven words that I came up with that I like to embody, these are ideas that I like to bring no matter what I'm doing, even if I'm just walking through the grocery store with my face mask on, trying to avoid people, or if it's me playing the ukulele, or me watering a plant, or me driving the car, trying to stay focused on the road. I try and embody these seven things. I'm not saying these are your seven. I'm saying these are my seven. Maybe they'll resonate with you. Stable, loving, free, responsive, thoughtful, responsible, and peaceful. These are the words that I personally fill my bottle with. The question is, what are you filling your bottle with? I have a resource. It's a free resource that's on my website. So if you go to #positivity.com, that's the word #positivity.com. Let me hold this up so you can #positivity.com /vlog, VLOG. So it's a video vlog. And for the past 3 years, 4 years, I forget how long it's been, I've been doing a weekly video blog talking about a different, I call these magic words. You know, these are words that if we focus on them, they can produce personal and professional growth in our lives. So I don't even know how many words are on there because, you know, I've done every week for 3-4 years now. There's a lot of videos up there. But if you go down on the side list, it has all the different categories. So you can see a list of all these different positive words that you could be filling your bottle with. So what I would encourage you to do is, you know, just as a little practice, just sort of go through that list, scroll through it, click on a few of them and watch the videos or read the resources that are on there and see how they resonate with you. And maybe your word isn't on that list. Maybe there's a word that's coming to your mind about what you want to embody, and it's not on that list. If you do have a word that's not on the list, I encourage you to send me an email and tell me about it so I can come up with my own video on it. Or maybe you can share a video. I would love that. Oh my goodness, if you could do that. But what I would like to do right now with all of you, with you, Valerie, and all of you at home is there's a word search that I created with a list of, I think it's 9 words or 10 words that are positive words that, again, if we focus on these words, that if we fill our bottle with them, when life gets crazy and those spill out, positive things will come out. And what I would like us all to do is, Valerie's going to bring it up onto the screen in just a moment. I'm going to give you 10 seconds and find as many of the words that you can find on that list. We have fascination, inspiration, motivation, positivity, joy, kindness, empathy, confidence. 10 seconds. See how many of those words you can find in this word search, starting now. And I counted slowly, so it's probably more than 10 seconds, but that is time. All right, Valerie, question for you. How many of these words did you find inside the puzzle?
I found about 3 of them, but I also found some that aren't on the list.
Ah, yes, I was hoping you would. So how many of the words that are not on the list did you find in the puzzle?
I think I found more that weren't on the list, to be honest with you.
Oh, well, this is an interesting sidebar that we need to talk about then. We need to address. So you said you found 3 words on the list?
I found motivation, kindness, inspiration, positivity. I think those are the first few that I found right out of the gate.
Okay, so you found 4 of the words on the list. And what were the words that are not on the list that you found?
Discouragement, acceptance, and despair.
Okay, so you found 3 words that weren't on the list. So you still found 4 of the words that are on the list, right? So so that's the secret about this puzzle. So I gave you direction. I gave you a mission. You were going in looking for these positive things, right? However, the secret of secrets is there's an equal number of words not on the list that are also hiding in this list. Now, the reason you were able to find, more of the words that are on the list is because that's what you went in looking for. You went in looking for these positive words. Now, sure, you still found some of the words that are on the list, and so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so there's 8 words that I qualify as positive.
there were another 8 words that are negative. And then that one in the middle that you found, acceptance, I call that a neutral word. And that's a whole lesson for another day. Because acceptance can go either up or down depending on what we choose, how we choose to respond to it. But the lesson here, the idea with this is what we choose to focus on is what we put into our bottle. If we go into life looking for despair, if we go in looking for hate, if we go in looking for greed, if we go in looking for negativity, well, that's what's going to be filled up in our bottle. But if we instead choose to look for what motivates us, what sparks joy, if we choose to be kind and have empathy, if we choose these things, we put that into our bottle, well, then that's what's going to spill out when the going gets tough. And when the going is great, well, my goodness, our bottle will just overflow with positive, good things. So I encourage you to, again, visit #positivity.com/vlog. Find a list of all those positive magic words on there. See what resonates with you. And I love to hear from you, Valerie, and I'd love to hear from any of your viewers who have words that they want to share as well.
I love that. And I'll be sure to tag the video with all of the ways that people can get in touch with you, because you are such an inspiration to so many people. You've got such a great message. Your story is so, it's just inspirational. And we need mentors and figures like you, and a community, and a conversation. And this is so valuable. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and your contribution today. You've helped me tremendously, and I trust you've helped so many people that have either joined us live or will watch a video replay at their own pace. But I just want to remind everybody that how they can get in touch with you. So I know you have a website. I know you have an email distribution list, the video blog that we'll tag in this. And I want people to also know that you're available to do virtual workshops and trainings for companies, associations, organizations. This isn't just one-on-one work. You know, you work with some really heavy hitters, and a lot of companies right now are looking for ways to boost morale, to work with their remote workers, to give them a lift. So I think you're about to be very busy, and I think that's a good thing. And you know, I love to make connections for people, and especially when there's such high caliber and high quality people like Jonas, it makes my job pretty easy. So, you know, you have so many gifts that I just want to help you share them with as many people as you can. So I want to thank you again for joining us, and keep on keeping on, as we say, because the work you're doing is important, and more than ever, we need to be positive. So thank you, Jonas.
You're welcome. And thank you, Valerie.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Thank you. We'll see each other soon.
Stay positive.
I will. Bye-bye.